One of the more unified messages we've heard from public health officials this year has been about the importance of getting a flu vaccine this season, with many raising concerns that we could have to fight two major health crises at the same time, influenza and COVID. But while the federal government has been urging these shots, they've also been denying them among one especially vulnerable population, migrant kids in U.S. detention centers. During the last flu season, 3 children died from influenza while in Customs and Border Protection custody. 2-year-old Wilmer Vásquez, 8-year-old Felipe Gómez Alonzo, and 16-year-old Carlos Vásquez, after advocates say they were denied appropriate medical care. Following their deaths, the CDC reportedly reached out to the agency and urged them to start offering vaccines, but Customs and Border Protection officials rejected the idea, citing logistical concerns. And when doctors went to a detention center, well, take a look at what happened.
We're here to provide flu shots. Within 30 minutes, we can vaccinate 100 folks.
Customs and Border Patrol was like, no chance. Instead of being allowed to go in and vaccinate children, we were arrested.
Sadistic. That was Dr. Mario Mendoza, a physician and the founder of the nonprofit Life-Undocumented, and he was undocumented once himself. He tells his immigration story and how he was inspired to fight for kids like Wilmer, Felipe, and Carlos in a new short film, a version of which was just published by the New York Times. Mario joins me now, along with the film's director and producer, Beth Murphy. Beth is executive producer for GBH's The GroundTruth Project and founder of Principal Pictures. Doctor and Beth, great to see you both. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the piece.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so
Doctor,
much
can
for
you,
your time.
my pleasure, spend a couple of seconds and tell us a little bit more about Carlos Vásquez.
So in this case, and just as a disclaimer, I don't have all the details of this particular case, but I have what was publicly available. And what we do know is that this was absolutely preventable. So in the case of Carlos, this teenager who was otherwise healthy, as far as we could see, all he needed was Tylenol and oral hydration, i.e. water, Gatorade, in a timely manner. He was ignored for somewhere between 4 to 6 hours, with a fever of over 102, and all he needed was hydration. We know that people could die from the flu, but in this case, it was absolutely preventable with things that you could buy from your closest pharmacy or deli, nothing that complicated.
And I know it's only speculation on your part, but why are kids denied this basic and fairly cheap medical care? Is just part of this country's anti-immigrant animus at this point in time, or what is it?
You know, I can tell you in part the response that I have been peripherally involved with in terms of a response from CBP, DHS, ICE, really as a conglomerate. And their policy is that they're not a healthcare agency, even though they are to provide basic medical care by law, because this detention centers is not criminal detention, it's civil. They are not set up, quote unquote, to disseminate or to provide vaccinations. Neither do they have the healthcare expertise, in other words. But that's, as we know, it's pretty simple to administer these vaccines.
Also, and you and fellow doctors were willing to provide the expertise. So even if they didn't want to develop it internally, it was there. You know, Beth, I know you, and this audience knows you from doing films about Rwanda post-genocide, Afghanistan during the war. What is it like to do a film in your home country where kids are being denied basic medical care?
I mean, it's just unbelievable, Jim. The horror and the sadness and really the anger that I felt when we were hearing the reports about kids being in cages, kids being ripped away from their parents' arms. I mean, it was just so shocking at the beginning, and I never want to lose that sense of shock that we had at the beginning and we should still have today. And so when I heard about what the doctors were doing, I thought, wow, like when is the last time we've seen the mobilization of mass amounts of physicians, like this? Like not since, the anti-nuclear movement. And so, here are physicians around the country rising up and saying, enough, this has to stop. And I became really interested in what was happening, not only in the United States, but also, in Central America, what's happening on both sides of the border, and what are the health ramifications of migration. And, Dr. Mario Mendoza's story is, I really think something, it had such an impact on me when I heard him tell his story of crossing the border at the age of 7. And
me too.
Yeah, and what it comes down to is trauma. And, that's the unifying thread here, is the trauma that is happening to these kids. And it's happening in the moment. We really have not yet seen the long-term repercussions of that trauma.
Doctor, Beth anticipated my next question. You make clear, I believe, that part of what drew you to this is that you are Carlos Vásquez in many ways, making a long and dangerous trip from El Salvador when you were a kid as well.
Absolutely, and this is not a trip that my family and I wanted to make, nor was it planned that I cross by myself with a coyote. I was supposed to be driven across. But I ended up running for 12 hours, and I, as Beth nicely said, discover my own trauma, to be honest, as I move along in life. And this is really the first time that I start digesting this childhood trauma. Now, it's not that it's not digestible, I can move forward, but it's there. And we know from the American Academy of Pediatrics recently, and this year, they put out a statement saying that one day in detention is one day too much in terms of inducing trauma in children. This is well known.
Beth, you mentioned other countries, and one of the most stunning parts of this film, we only have a minute left, is when Dr. Mendoza and his colleagues go on U.S. soil to San Diego to a detention center to offer to vaccinate kids. They're rejected by our government, and then they go to Mexico, where asylum seekers are kept because of this absurd Remain in Mexico policy. And in areas controlled by drug cartels, there it is, Dr. Mendoza and his colleagues are able to administer the vaccine. It is really surreal.
And in that shelter that you just showed the video of in Mexico, and as you said, really controlled by the drug cartels, there are people there being kidnapped. And so when this Remain in Mexico policy, the U.S. government is putting asylum seekers, back into the hands of kidnappers. And we heard these stories from the people who were in detention, who had been kidnapped and now had almost a get out of jail free card from the kidnappers. Like, here's this card. If you ever get kidnapped again, show it to us and we'll let you go.
Well, my hope is, and I assume yours, that by both of you shining a light on an unconscionable situation, it will change, hopefully immediately, if not after January 20th. Beth Murphy, congratulations on the film, and Dr. Mendoza, congratulations on your work. It is really spectacular. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The film, again, is Mario Mendoza, A Doctor's Journey. You can find the 5-minute version on the New York Times website right now, and the full film will be out next month at the GroundTruthProject.org.